Are you afraid? Are you afraid? If you look behind me, you see the likeness of George Floyd. I'm sure George Floyd is a name that escapes no one. On May 25th, George Floyd made a very poor decision. He went into the Cup grocery store on Lake Street in South Minneapolis and passed a $20 bogus bill. He and his friend left the grocery store and the proprietor called the police. Within a few minutes, a squad car appeared. They pulled George out of the car and handcuffed him. Shortly after that, several more squad cars showed up. They attempted to place George in the back of the squad car. And for some reason, he resisted. He made another bad decision. And within moments, he's on the pavement, face down, with 2 to 3 patrolmen sitting on him, kneeling on him. And within 30 minutes, George's bad decisions cost him his life. Should it? No. We were in a lockdown kind of point with crime in Minneapolis, and a decision was made that only the most egregious and only the most serious crimes would be arrested. He should have been given a warrant and sent on his way. They could not take him to jail. But in this case, he was dead. Now, at this same time, all of this is being recorded live by many, many different people. And within 1 hour, it had gone viral. And it created a firestorm of emotion, hate, and anger, resulting in looting, terror, and fire. It was crazy. It went all over the internet. It spread all over the US, and within days, it was a subject of some concern throughout the world. It was obvious that Minneapolis was no different in terms of race relations than Ferguson, Missouri, than Atlanta, Georgia, than Orlando, Florida. The only difference is we kid ourselves into thinking it's better up here because we're white. Simple as that. Now, I have a friend. His name is Rashid Kadir. Rashid is Malaysian. He's dark-skinned. He can pass for American Indian. He can pass for Latino. He can pass for Black. He can pass for Arab. But he is Malaysian. And he's old enough and has experienced enough of these kinds of challenging things to know how he needs to behave himself. And I asked him, I said, were you concerned about what you saw? And he said, here's my reaction, Rick. In the beginning, I thought George had done something wrong. And he did. He passed a $20 bill that was bogus. But within a few minutes, it was apparent that this had gone terribly, terribly wrong. And he said, I'm afraid. But I'm not afraid for myself because I know how to handle this. I'm afraid for my daughter. She's 20 years old. She doesn't have the experience. She's grown up in white Rochester. She just doesn't know. And when you're young, you do stupid things. He related a number of stories that were funny, but were truly, truly sad. And then he told me a story I think that hits the nail on the head. Rashid's permanent home is in Rochester. His work home is in Mitchell, South Dakota, and he commutes on the weekends. Now, Rashid is a law-abiding citizen. He's learned that he's got to be careful. So he's driving back from Mitchell in the afternoon, and he knows that in the Worthington area, there is a local law enforcement guy that sits along the median. So Rashid is always very careful. Rashid is driving a white Subaru Legacy, as innocuous a machine as you can get, but he's wearing sunglasses that day, and he's a dark-skinned man. He goes by the officer, and the officer turns around and follows him down the road and pulls him over. And he asks for identification and proof of insurance. Rashid provides all this, and at this point in time, the officer realized that the car is not stolen, and Rashid is just a regular guy. So Rashid takes the next step, and he says, "Why did you pull me over?" The officer says this: "You were following too close to the car in front of you." Well, Rashid should have stopped there, but he said this: "Officer, I have this device on my car in the Subaru that does not allow me to follow too closely when we're on cruise control." The officer has just been caught in a bold-faced lie. His response is, "Are you calling me a liar?" Rashid's response, because he's been around the block a couple times, "Oh no, no." He disarms the situation and goes on his way. Now, that was a point in time that could have been very much like George Floyd. Not as serious, but something could have gone very south on that. Rashid had been profiled. No question about that. He had been given a bogus answer when he asked the question. And Rashid was smart enough not to go any farther with it. Now, what's the solution to this? There are no good solutions. Discrimination, profiling, all those things have been with us for thousands and thousands of years. And we're not going to change very much. But we kid ourselves in the upper Midwest to think that things are different. They're not different. They're just a little more subtle. And we have to decide what we can do to change it. What we can do to make sure there are no more George Floyds. Well, national leadership is not the answer, because if anything, they seem to make it worse. The state legislature, the state governors can't seem to come to a decision. So it becomes up to us at the grassroots to make a difference, to tell people that we will not tolerate this kind of behavior before. It's up to us. Are we afraid? We should be. George, I'm sure, at some point in time was afraid. We, you and I should be afraid for our futures. Madam Toastmaster.